Strictly music, only music, and nothing else. Today we're going to be getting into an artist review, and it's with a heavy heart I say that this artist review will be about the artist formerly known as Rich Homie Quan. Unfortunately, Rich Homie Quan has passed today, and I felt the need to cover some of his greatest hits and his contribution to the overall game that we now know and love as the current state of rap culture, and cover his contributions to it. Without any further ado, I will be covering some of my favorite songs and some of Rich Homie Quan's best tracks, and I'll be doing a brief synopsis of these tracks, and we're going to get into the music, strictly music, only music, and nothing else. So let's go ahead and get into it. Now, we all know Rich Homie Quan to be the second half of the viral smash and just the overall smash hit known as Lifestyle under the Rich Gang moniker featuring Young Thug, and that song has superseded the years. A decade later, it is still relevant, and Lifestyle is still one of those ones. But that same year of 2014, he was also on songs like Mamacita, and he was the other half of that featuring Travis Scott, or he was the feature, to the artist known as Travis Scott. And the year before that, he was on a song by the name of My Nigga by YG, and he was also joined by Jeezy. So Rich Homie Quan was known to be a magnificent feature to a lot of those tracks around that early 2010s type of era, and he was known to bring the melody, he was known to bring the hook, and he was on plenty of smashes. He was the other half, and some might even say in some cases he was the better half of some of these smashes, and we cannot overlook that when we look at the career of an artist like Rich Homie Quan. However, he still did have hits on his own, as the year after Lifestyle he came out with Flex, which is debatably one of his biggest songs, and it was also joined by a viral dance. So Rich Homie Quan has been known to do a lot. From 2013 to about 2016, he was on a roll, and he also has songs like Walkthrough featuring Problem on his 2014 album, I Promise I Will Never Stop Going In. He also has songs like I Fuck With You Girl and Blah 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 also on that album. He was also on a joint album in 2014 with the artist that we all know and love by the name of Gucci Mane. Rich Homie Quan does have a lot of skin, and he had a lot of skin in this game, and we have to take a moment out to not only give our condolences, but to admire and just overall appreciate his contributions to the game, with being on the other half of songs like Lifestyle, being the other half of songs like Mamacita. But that's not to say that he didn't have his own standalone hits, as we see him in 2014 with one of my personal favorites, Milk Marie. On the joint project with Young Thug, he had a solo song on there by the name of Milk Marie, and we all know that to be a smash. That is debatably, I would say, me personally, is one of his best songs, and is definitely debatably one of his top three. He definitely stepped out when he made that on that Rich Gang track with Young Thug. He had his own shine on there with the Milk Marie tape. You also see him around that same time frame with songs like Tell 'Em, as he was also the other half of that song, joined by Young Thug. Young Thug and Rich Homie Quan are debatably some of the best artists to put together, if not top 5 duos of this 2010s era that we currently are in. And though they stopped working with each other early, we can always remember that together they were a force of nature. So what does all of this mean? What does all of this mean as we look back at his contribution? He drove the culture initially at the turning point of the culture when Young Thug came out and people fully couldn't grasp the sound. He helped push that and pioneer that. When the Migos were still fresh, when Young Thug was still fresh, Rich Homie was a part of that conversation. And when we do look back, we have to acknowledge that this was a very talented artist. Rich Homie Quan was a very talented artist, and he has some songs that we're still giving a lot of burn to this day. My personal top 3 from Rich Homie Quan would have to be Lifestyle featuring Young Thug, or, Lifestyle with Rich Homie and Young Thug, Tell 'Em with Rich Homie and Young Thug, and Milk Marie. Milk Marie is a smash, and we all know Rich Homie Quan was good for a hit. He was good for a hit. He had Type of Way in 2013. He was joined by Boozy on Boozy's track Like a Man in 2014. So between 2013 to 2015, 2016, Quan had his foot on the gas, and he refused to let up. And though we are now in 2024, we can look back fondly at the contributions that he made in the early 2010s. He was even joined on the Baby's track Celebrate in 2019. So Quan was still around. He had plans to drop another album, and he was still around. He was even on Fabulous's The Young OG project in 2014, which we know to be one of Fabulous's best tapes. He was joined on No Label 2. When Migos dropped No Label 2, Rich Homie Quan was there as well. So Rich Homie Quan had his hands in a lot of pots at the top of this culture as we saw it start to shift, and we were trying to grasp the sound and the direction that it would go. He was there, and he was a part of that conversation. I think as an artist, I do see semblance of Rich Homie Quan and some of the newer guys. How could you not emulate a sound like Rich Homie and Young Thug when they had their Rich Gang moniker and they were tearing up the town, ripping up the streets? We see that sound emulated often today. Young Thug is known as a pioneer, and Rich Homie is a lesser known pioneer, but the sound was still adapted. Strictly music, only music, and nothing else. This is an artist review of the late, great Rich Homie Quan. And I think when we talk about the culture shifting to what it now is, when the Migos were fresh, when Young Thug was fresh, when a lot of these newer acts that we know and love were fresh onto the scene, when we talk about that, we got to talk about Rich Homie Quan. Rest in power. Strictly music, only music, and nothing else. Like, comment, subscribe, and drop your favorite Rich Homie Quan song. We out.